There's a lot of pressure in making movies of this size, but 90% of it comes from me. As a filmmaker, I like making these movies because there's just so much to play with visually. And we've done things that they couldn't do back then.
There's still some of the same techniques we share. I mean, we still use matte paintings, we still do elaborate miniatures. We can do more with the miniatures because we have more sophisticated pyrotechnics and rigs and hydraulic systems. But on top of that, we have the best of the modern new computer technologies that allow us to give these creatures and these characters a freedom that they really never had back in the classic horror days.
The wonderful thing about the digital world that we're all in now is that there are no limitations on one's imagination. The only limitations are your pocketbook.
There's a complexity involved there that requires keeping a lot of balls in the air. So if you're doing that, you want to go into those sequences prepared.
We had quite a few things that were very challenging. Just about everything Van Helsing was challenging. I don't think ILM did any simple shots on this particular project.
It's been a pleasure knowing you. Au revoir!
For example, Mr. Hyde sequence, in putting that together, we had an animatic to refer to start help us plan that.
We animated the action first. We didn't really know what the shots were going to be, and we kind of designed and animated the action, and then went in and covered the scene as if, you know, you had two real actors and you were finding the good angles.
We did a lot of different concept explorations. What we came up with was someone who is a really just a grotesque-looking human being who we basically sort of felt like he was one of those British backstreet thugs that's been down drinking all night at the pub and come and bash the crap out of you, you know.
And that's it! 4 children, 3 goats, whoosh, and a rather large massacre of poultry.
When we saw the way Schuller performed as Frankenstein, we thought, wow, this guy really, even with all this stuff on him, moves really in an agile way, and Schuller was really happy to do it. And we made a helmet with a picture of Mr. Hyde on the top so we could work out our compositions. It takes a real leap of faith on the part of the director and the editors and the producer, because when they get all the material back, the first reaction is, how is this going to work? Schuller came up to ILM and we strapped him in a motion capture suit and had him go through the same performance. And having done that rough animation, it gave a really good guide so that he could have a look at what we really roughly wanted Hyde to do. We'd set up the motion capture so we got real-time feedback, so Schuller and Stephen could see him as Mr. Hyde on the monitor in the scene, composited real-time, and it made it very easy.
You're the great Van Helsing.
We decided to treat this not as a computer graphic character, but as an actor, and then asked Robbie Coltrane to lend his voice for the character.
I think you'll find the view over here rather spectacular.
The facial animation was based on Robbie Coltrane's visual portrayal of the character when he was acting. The combination created a really unique character that comes out really strong on screen.
My turn!
I think he'll be probably the highest achievement that's ever been seen in terms of a photoreal, completely synthetic character.
Kill the stranger. Love to.
One of the main things that Stephen wanted was to see these flame brides fly up to camera and see the actresses truly performing.
Do you like to fly?
We used 2 different techniques to build the same character. Their body was digital, their face was shot on film. We wanted to shoot the face and hair of the performer, but at the exact same time track how their body moved. That meant we needed to use the motion capture on the film set with the huge amounts of lights that would be there also. So we had to come up with techniques that would make all of the little markers on the performer much brighter than they otherwise would be. So we developed these custom circuit boards that have a real high-powered light source on them. It's an LED light-emitting diode. Human can't see the light. You can stare at it and you wouldn't even know if it's on or not. But as soon as you look through one of our motion capture cameras, which can see infrared light, then you notice how bright it is. The first thing were the markers, and we could hide all of the custom wires that went to each one of those. So the suit would not have wires running all over that the brides would get tangled up in. We had 24 motion capture cameras because we knew people and things would always get in the way. We knew at times our motion capture cameras would be looking directly at a film light, and even though we'd sort of knocked out a lot of the light, we'd still have some in there that would cause problems. So here's the whole process. We shot background plates in Prague. We had to track how the film camera moved through space. The next step was, how does the bride move? So we create these animatics with a digital version of the bride flying through that shot. And this gives us an idea of how she moves relative to the film camera. We convert them to something that would be useful for the hybrid shoot itself. So the cameramen knew how to move the camera, so the stunt people knew how to move the brides, so the brides knew exactly what to do, and we'd have a performance that actually fit with the shot that was shot months earlier. We took those two things and inserted them into the original background plate. And once we stick it on the 3D bride, we'll get something that looks like this vinyl here.
We typically measured time by shots. We'd assign the shots, and animation, might take anywhere from a week to a month for a given shot. And once the animators started, then we tried to start the technical director soon after so he could start roughing in his lighting while the animator was still working. And then we'd overlap that with the compositor starting to work. And each artist typically had 2 or 3 shots that they were working at one time. But generally, a shot could take easily a month to 2 months, in some cases a few months, to accomplish, just because of all the little pieces to be dealt with.
It's such an exciting sequence. It's just wrought with peril from one end to the other. And this is just such a beautiful way to end it.
The creatures were pretty much the top end of what we can do with creature technology today. All these hair simulations, flesh simulations. We had subsurface scattering to give a sort of more organic look to the hell beast creature. We had to transform Hugh Jackman into a big, scary werewolf, but also Stephen Summers wanted the werewolf to be sexy looking. And both of them to be like rock stars, like these manes of elaborate hair and so on. So it was a big challenge because it really required the best of what we can do in terms of creating computer graphics creatures. And because these creatures can leap around the place and fly, we had to fabricate the rest of the set. But we also then had to transform our hero and our villain back and forward into characters. And so I think overall that presented a lot of challenges. And I think the results is a full-on two-fisted battle between two monsters that any horror fan would love to work on something like that. Finally, when Hugh transforms from the werewolf back to Van Helsing at the end of the film, and Anna is dead now, and he's cradling her in her arms, and this was something that Stephen always wanted, a really iconic image of the werewolf holding his love and howling at the moon, and then seamlessly go to Van Helsing. Basically, a lot of his fur and some of his skin just sort of wafts off him. And so it's a little different from the other transformations, but it fulfilled this need to be not horrific.
I think that there are people that will see this movie that think the visual effects are phenomenal, like the most unbelievable visual effects they've ever seen. I'm one of those people.
I can see everyday life all the time. For some reason, my sensibilities, especially as a writer, I guess. As a writer, I love to create stuff that you haven't seen before.